In 1989, Forbes magazine did something unprecedented. They added a Colombian drug lord to their billionaires list, Pablo Escobar. He had a net worth of $30 billion. To put that in perspective, that's more than the GDP of half the countries in the world at that time. But here's what's fascinating from a business standpoint. Escobar didn't just traffic drugs. He built what might be the most vertically integrated criminal enterprise in history. And then he destroyed it all with one fatal strategic mistake. Before we dive in, a quick disclaimer. This video analyzes Escobar's operation purely from a business perspective. We're not glorifying crime or violence. We're examining the strategy, the decisions, and ultimately the mistakes. This is about understanding how business principles apply even in the darkest industries. Welcome to Duro. Today we're breaking down how a street-level smuggler built a $30 billion empire and how strategic overreach brought it all crashing down. Pablo Escobar started small, really small. In the early 1970s, he was smuggling cigarettes and electronic goods across the Colombian border, basic contraband stuff. The margins were decent, maybe 20 to 30%, if you were lucky. He was making money, but nothing spectacular. He'd steal cars, sell contraband cigarettes, move stolen goods, standard criminal activity in Medellín at the time. Then in 1975, something changed. Escobar met a coca paste dealer named Alfredo Astado, who explained the economics of cocaine. And when Escobar ran the numbers, everything shifted. You could buy coca paste in Peru or Bolivia for about $2,500 per kilo, process it in Colombia, then sell it in Miami for $30,000 per kilo. Do the math. That's not a 30% margin. That's a 2,000% margin, sometimes higher. Think about it this way. You buy something for $1, sell it for $20? That's already incredible. Escobar was buying for $2,500 and selling for $30,000. And cocaine had something his cigarette business didn't. Inelastic demand. That's economist talk for. People keep buying no matter the price. Why? Addiction. The customer always comes back. Plus, it was compact and lightweight. 1 kilo of cocaine was worth more than 20 kilos of marijuana, but took up a fraction of the space. Easier to hide, easier to transport, exponentially more profitable. From Escobar's cold perspective, he'd just found the ultimate market opportunity. High margins, inelastic demand, growing customer base in the United States, and in the late 70s, relatively low competition. He made his decision immediately. He was going all in on cocaine, but Escobar was smart enough to know he couldn't do this alone. The cocaine business required different specialized skills at every stage. You needed people who understood coca cultivation in Peru and Bolivia. You needed chemists to process the paste. You needed pilots and smuggling routes. You needed distribution networks in American cities. You needed money laundering operations. And you needed muscle to protect everything and eliminate competition. One person couldn't master all of this. So in 1976, Escobar did what any smart entrepreneur does when facing a complex problem. He found partners with complementary skills. He formed what would become known as the Medellín Cartel. Jorge Ochoa and his brothers brought established smuggling routes and deep political connections in Colombia's upper class. Jose Gacha brought distribution networks and an army of sicarios, the hitmen. Carlos Later, a Colombian-German smuggler Escobar had met in prison, brought something revolutionary. A private island in the Bahamas called Norman's Cay. It had a 3,300-foot airstrip, perfect for cocaine flights. It was strategically located between Colombia and Florida. And Leader had bought off the Bahamian officials who might have cared. Together, they pooled their resources. Ochoa had the connections. Gacha had the muscle. Leader had the logistics infrastructure. Escobar had the vision and ruthlessness to dominate. They invested together in labs, planes, distribution networks. They shared the risks and the profits. By 1978, they were moving serious weight. By 1980, the Medellín cartel controlled an estimated 80% of the cocaine entering the United States. That's not just market leadership, that's essentially a monopoly. And the money started flowing in amounts that are genuinely hard to comprehend. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Between 1980 and 1984, Escobar did something few criminal organizations ever achieve. He vertically integrated the entire supply chain. That means controlling every step from raw materials to the end customer. Think Apple. They design the iPhone, control the software, manufacture key components, run the retail stores. They control everything from creation to customer. Huge advantages. You capture all the profit at every stage. You control quality. You can't be squeezed by suppliers or distributors. Escobar did the same thing, but with cocaine. At the bottom of the chain, he had coca plantations in Peru and Bolivia. He either owned them or controlled the farmers through payments and threats. Then processing. He built massive laboratories hidden deep in the Colombian jungle. Industrial scale facilities that could process thousands of kilos of coca paste into pure cocaine. Then transportation. Norman's Cay became the crown jewel. They'd load planes in Colombia, fly to the island, refuel, then continue to hidden landing strips in Florida. At the peak, Norman's Cay had more air traffic than some regional airports. When that got too hot, Escobar adapted. He bought speedboats, submarines, experimented with semi-submersibles years before other cartels thought of it. Backup routes through Central America, Mexico, the Caribbean, redundancy built into every step. Then distribution in the United States, networks in Miami, Los Angeles, New York, Houston, Chicago, warehouses, safe houses, an army of street dealers. He controlled wholesale distribution and took a cut of everything. And finally, enforcement. An army of sicarios, estimates range from 3,000 to over 5,000. They eliminated competition, murdered informants, intimidated witnesses, killed journalists, assassinated police officers who couldn't be bribed. This wasn't random violence. This was systematic elimination of business threats. By eliminating all middlemen, controlling quality, reducing vulnerability, and achieving massive economies of scale, Escobar created an unstoppable machine. At the peak of his power between 1984 and 1989, the numbers are almost impossible to believe. The Medellín cartel was smuggling approximately 15 tons of cocaine into the United States every single day. That generated approximately $420 million per week in revenue. Annual revenue, around $22 billion. To put that in perspective, that's more than Netflix or Starbucks make today. And this was in 1980s dollars. But even with those revenues, Escobar had a massive cost problem. He was spending an estimated $2,500 million per year on operational expenses. Bribes, payoffs, lost shipments, product that got wet or spoiled. The cash storage problem was insane. They were making so much money, literally tons of physical cash, that they couldn't launder it fast enough. They had to store it in warehouses, bury it, hide it in walls. Escobar reportedly had to write off 10% of his money every year just to spoilage. 10% of billions just gone. He was literally losing more money to rats than most Fortune 500 companies make in profit. But even with these costs, he was still netting somewhere between $15 to $20 billion annually. The most profitable criminal enterprise in human history. But profit wasn't his only problem. Escobar understood something fundamental. In an illegal business, your biggest threat isn't competition, it's law enforcement. You can outcompete other criminals, but if the state decides to destroy you, they have unlimited resources. So Escobar developed a strategy that became infamous. Plata o plomo, silver or lead, a bribe or a bullet. He was systematically buying control of the institutions supposed to stop him. Judges, police commanders, politicians, journalists. The offer was simple. Take a bribe and look the other way, or refuse and die. This was strategic regulatory capture at a massive scale. That's when companies essentially control the bodies that are supposed to oversee them. In legal industries, this happens through lobbying and campaign donations. Escobar just used a more direct version. The scale was astonishing. At one point, he had over half the Colombian judiciary on his payroll. Police commanders tipped him off about raids. Military officers looked the other way when his planes flew overhead. He even had people inside the DS, Colombia's equivalent of the FBI. He knew about investigations before they happened. He knew who was informing on him. He'd created a parallel power structure where he was more powerful in certain regions than the government itself. In 1982, he ran for Congress, got himself elected as an alternate representative, a drug lord in Congress. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was trying to buy complete political immunity through legitimate political power. At the same time, he launched a massive public relations campaign. He built housing for the poor in Medellín, entire neighborhoods, soccer fields, churches, schools. He positioned himself as Robin Hood, a man of the people fighting a corrupt elite, and for a while, it worked. He had genuine popular support, especially among the poor who had received his money. People loved him. They called him Don Pablo. He walked around in public, attended soccer matches, gave interviews. But not everyone could be bought or intimidated. And the attention he was drawing was making some very powerful people very angry. And this is where everything falls apart. In 1989, Escobar made the decision that would destroy everything he'd built over 15 years. Luis Carlos Galán was a Colombian presidential candidate, anti-corruption, popular, and gaining serious momentum in the polls. More importantly, Galán was specifically, loudly, publicly anti-Escobar. Years earlier, Galán had exposed Escobar's drug trafficking when Escobar was building his political career. He'd pushed Escobar out of politics and humiliated him. Now Galán was about to become president, and he'd made it clear that going after Escobar would be a top priority. Escobar's response, he had Galán assassinated, shot dead at a campaign rally in front of thousands of people on August 18, 1989. Then he doubled down. He launched a terrorist campaign against the Colombian state. He bombed the DAS headquarters in Bogotá, killing 70 people. He bombed Avianca Flight 203, a commercial airliner, killing all 110 people on board. His target was an informant who wasn't even on the plane. 110 innocent people dead for nothing. Car bombs all over Bogotá. He specifically targeted police officers. Over 600 cops killed during his war against the state. He offered bounties, $4,000 for every police officer killed. Cops being hunted for bounties. He tried to kidnap or kill presidential candidates, members of prominent families, anyone associated with the government. Total war. This was strategic overreach on a catastrophic level. Strategic overreach is when you push beyond what you can handle, when you become so aggressive that you create enemies you can't defeat, when you become your own worst enemy. Up until this point, Escobar had been operating with strategic intelligence. Yes, he was violent, but his violence was targeted. Competitors, informants, specific officials, and he balanced violence with corruption. He bribed more than he killed. He stayed in the shadows. Most importantly, he never directly challenged the Colombian state's monopoly on violence. He worked around it, under it, through it, but never directly against it. The moment he started bombing civilians, declaring open war on the government, everything changed. He crossed the line from powerful criminal to public enemy number one, from drug lord to terrorist. Here's what happened and why this was catastrophic. First, he lost his social license to operate. The people of Medellín who'd seen him as Robin Hood now saw their children at risk. Medellín became a war zone. Public opinion turned completely against him. He made it politically impossible for the Colombian government to negotiate. When you bomb a plane full of civilians, when you offer bounties on cops, when you assassinate a presidential candidate, the government has no choice but to come after you with everything. President Cesar Gaviria couldn't negotiate even if he wanted to. He united all his enemies. The Cali Cartel, his competitors, formed Los Pepes, a death squad with one mission: systematically destroy everything Escobar owned and kill everyone loyal to him. The DEA intensified their efforts. The Colombian government created the search block with one objective: find Pablo Escobar. When people realized the empire was doomed, when the money stopped flowing because he was in hiding, they started to flip. Associates became informants. His own sicarios turned on him. The vertical integration that had been his strength became his weakness, because when the top fell, everything collapsed. Within 2 years of Galan's assassination, Escobar's empire was completely dismantled. His labs were raided and destroyed. His distribution networks in the United States were rolled up. His partners were dead in prison or had fled. Los Pepes systematically hunted down and killed his sicarios, burned his properties, murdered his lawyers and associates. Even his family had to flee. And the money? The billions of dollars? Inaccessible. You can't access your fortune when you're running from safe house to safe house, when everyone is hunting you, when your own people are betraying you. The Medellín cartel, once the most powerful criminal organization in the world, was gone, all because of one massive strategic mistake. Compare this to the Cali cartel, his rivals. They watched what happened to Escobar and learned the lesson. They stayed in the shadows. They wore suits, not jeans. They focused on bribing, not bombing. They never challenged the state openly. They were quiet, methodical, almost boring, and they survived for years longer than Escobar did. They eventually got caught too, but they lasted much longer, and many served relatively short sentences because they hadn't committed the kind of atrocities that made them impossible to negotiate with. Escobar had built one of history's most successful criminal empires using textbook business strategies: vertical integration, strategic partnerships, economies of scale, market domination. But he forgot the most important rule of operating in a legal enterprise. You can never, ever be more powerful than the state itself. The moment you publicly challenge the state's monopoly on violence, the moment you become a threat to the government's legitimacy, you're finished. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how well organized you are. The state has infinite resources and infinite patience when you force them to destroy you. If you found this analysis valuable, hit that subscribe button. Next time, we're breaking down another case that changed an entire industry. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.